Microphone check.
Check the microphone. This is actually not a microphone. It's actually a gimbal, the Zhiyun M3.
This is the world's smallest gimbal.
It's really cute. Look at it.
Can we just talk about this for a second? Take the feet off and look at this thing.
It's rolling away.
Today, we're doing something we've never done before.
What are we doing?
Well, kind of. We're taking this, and we're taking this, and we're going to attempt to make like a 1-minute short film. So thank you, Zhiyun, for coming on and sponsoring today's video. This is the new Zhiyun Crane M3. We're gonna talk about this gimbal, but we're also gonna talk about mobile filmmaking. So we'll talk about some of the features and just kind of show you guys how we used it. But also, this is not just a phone gimbal. This can actually apparently balance the A7S III.
I'm skeptical, but we're gonna try it out.
We're gonna try it out in a little bit. We don't normally make videos on our phones, but a couple of weeks ago, we were on a trip and we didn't bring any of our cameras, and a story kind of popped up that we wanted to film.
You old woman.
I know, I used my iPad.
You're like one of those seniors with their iPads.
Turn around and
taking
smile.
pictures.
We ended up filming this whole vlog on our iPad/iPhone. Link up here if you wanna see it. It kind of got me thinking about whether the new iPhones are actually that good.
Put your money where your mouth is, because you always preach gear doesn't matter.
Correct.
Asterisk to a certain extent.
It's so tiny. It's like the world's smallest gimbal. It's so cute. It looks like a stormtrooper.
It does.
It comes with its own tiny backpack. This gimbal can also take a smaller mirrorless camera too. So they're saying it's a perfect kind of vlogging setup to pair with, like, say, a ZV-1 or even like the A6000 series if you're shooting Sony, or Canon M, whatever. And it comes with like a phone mount, which is kind of neat. We've never really done like any mobile filmmaking videos before, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of walk you guys through this gimbal whilst experimenting with shooting on an iPhone.
As far as this size and form factor is concerned, how does it compare to the other gimbal we have?
Should I go get it?
Yeah, let's go get it.
Okay, 1 second. Please hold.
Please hold.
This is the Weebill 2, which is our favorite. A while ago, a couple years ago, we were saying, you don't really need a gimbal. And the more we start making these kind of like short films and more conceptual projects, you really do need a gimbal. Wait, do you want me to go get the original crane?
Yes.
Okay, just 1 second,
Hold,
please.
please.
Please hold. This is the original crane. What is this one? This is the Crane 2S. Here we kind of have a family. And so when Zhiyun reached out to see if we wanted to make a video about this gimbal, we jumped on it because we've made a video about these two, and I think it's kind of fun to look at how these fit into different setups, because there's different uses for each of these gimbals, right?
Because a gimbal's not something you purchase every day. Would this probably stabilize better than this? Yes.
This is heavier, the camera that goes on top of this is heavier, and therefore your footage is gonna be more stable than something that's smaller and lighter. But if you have a small rig, it doesn't make sense to get something this big, to put like a teeny tiny mirrorless camera on, and that's where this comes in. Or a phone.
You never put a phone on this thing.
No.
The Weebill 2 is still a pretty compact gimbal.
Yeah.
If you're comparing it to like a full-size gimbal like the Crane 2S.
Yes.
They've just compacted everything even more.
This feels like a real piece of equipment. It's very sturdy, everything is metal, and it's got like the grip, it's got the screen, kind of like the Weebill 2 does. You can use the screen to change all the parameters, to check your weight and balance. Weight and balance, that's helicopter.
That's a helicopter term. Your axis balance?
Yeah, and you can use all of the same modes too. There's pan follow, lock mode, vortex mode.
Yeah, all the ones you're used to. Usually with these smaller gimbals, there's a trade-off, and there's corners cut, and it just feels cheap, but this feels like it's fully built, like what you'd expect from any of their other products.
It has a joystick, of course. You can actually hook your camera up to this, so you can control your camera through the handle. Comes with a bunch of cables. There's a whole compatibility list on their website if you're curious if this thing works. With your setup, we're going to be shooting with a phone's camera. We had not tested any of these things. We were just going to go out and shoot and see what happens.
Just gonna do it.
Yeah, and
we're not shooting in ProRes either.
No.
We're just shooting in the standard, whatever the default in the camera is.
So we're out shooting with the Zhiyun Crane M3. This is not like supposed to be a phone gimbal. It's supposed to be for all vlogging setups for like smaller cameras, mirrorless cameras, like the ZV-1, the Canon M series cameras. It can take the A6000 series cameras, and apparently it can also take the A7S III, which we're going to try to balance later.
I'm skeptical.
I am too, but they said it will take it. But we wanted to try something different, a little challenge for ourselves to shoot basically like a 1-minute short film with our phones, because we just upgraded to the iPhone 13 Pro. And I'm just curious to see like what we could get with the camera that's in our pockets all the time, plus this teeny tiny, world's cutest and smallest gimbal I've ever seen.
It's very precious.
It's very precious. It has a built-in light. It's got the touchscreen on the back, just kind of like the Weebill 2, which is really cool. So you can see if you're balanced. You have all of the modes that are on the other ones: pan, follow, lock, point of view, go, vortex. Yeah, so it's like the same kind of interface. This gimbal is actually like less than $400.
Really? That's a very interesting price point.
It's a small guy.
That is a small guy.
Trail closed due to
Hazardous conditions.
So we flew all the way here to shoot this video, and the trail's closed.
So the plan was to
The plan
was to fly out to one of the nicest state parks
my favorite
that I've ever been to, Watkins Glen.
Yeah, it looks like a scene from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
It's stunning.
We'll show some photos here, and here. You can walk behind waterfalls. You're down in this beautiful gorge with this nice little ravine going through it.
So I had this entire short film storyboarded for Watkins Glen.
Yes, we got there, and this happened. I'm sure you'll like getting the gorge down further.
Yeah, all right, well, let's go try it out. So the trail's closed. We just walked down to see if the other entrance is open. Also closed. You know, this film that we're making is about not having a time schedule or time crunch because it's about my perfect day shooting. The ironic thing is that today we actually do have a time limit. We flew here, so we had to be out of here like in an hour before it gets dark. So should have done this on a day where I could actually experience my perfect day, but it's me recalling a perfect day.
And creating art around that.
But it's a good day because I'm here with Chris and my family. The trail's closed. Wah. Ambulance.
Yeah, there's a trail that goes all the way down by the gorge over here. You can't really see it.
So this is turning out to be a bit of a bust. All of the gates are locked. My entire shot list for this video is based off of what I've seen down here, and there's not very much up here. So we might have to take this idea and go out tomorrow and shoot a different video.
To be continued.
So I got this idea from a conversation I had with my dad a couple of weeks ago where he was talking about the way he feels on the golf course. And what he was describing to me was the way I feel when I go out on a photo excursion. You're going on a photography excursion, whether it's by yourself or with a friend, and there's no time limit, like you have the whole day to go out. It's just about going out and having a good time and picking up your camera and shooting. So that's kind of what the short film is going to be about. We've made a little bit of a storyboard here. We're going to use our 7-shot sequence formula to shoot this film. If you haven't seen it, I will link it up here. That formula is key when you're shooting kind of short films and videos where you need to capture a story in a dynamic way. A couple years ago, we made a video on how to shoot with a gimbal. So we're using all the same type of techniques with different types of modes. I'll link them up here. There's actually 2. One with the Weeble 2 where we talked about all the modes, and one with the Crane 2S where we talked about how to actually shoot with a gimbal.
So using those techniques is actually gonna be a lot more important when you're using a smaller rig and a smaller gimbal. Having less mass is gonna mean that you're gonna be more prone to little shakes and bumps. Having a very dialed in setup and having meticulous technique as well is very important for shooting with smaller equipment.
I just kind of, using the 7-shot sequence, kind of just sketched out a couple of different types of shots. A wide shot walking through the trees, a follow shot of my feet walking, so that's kind of a close-up shot. What?
Your feet look like little music notes.
I'm walking down the path, Chris is following me. Close-up detail of a tree with a water dripping on it. Close-up walking shot with the camera. This is like a macro of eyeballs. Shut up, Chris. You're behind the camera just covering his mouth, trying not to laugh at my
No, I think
drawings.
it's really precious. I love your drawing.
Stop!
Ew.
I don't know how to draw. So look, shooting photos, orbit, around, close-up taking the picture, hitting the shutter, hand walking dolly shot. This is a top-down feet shot, so I just use arrows to show walking. Stop laughing, Chris! Okay, I'm done with showing you my storyboard.
No, keep showing. Please keep showing.
No, I just roughly sketched out a couple of shots. Chris! Stop!
I'm sorry. I love your drawings. They're the sweetest thing I've ever seen.
So you understand what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
Exactly, yeah.
Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? So yesterday was a bust. Big time bust. Well, for a couple of reasons. One, the gates were all closed to the destination in which I had storyboarded the little short film video for. We were using an app to film the video yesterday, and some of the footage looks terrible. There was all this like weird, like pinky colored, like green.
Just noisy.
Noisy.
It was like it was compressed.
It looked
overly compressed.
Overly compressed. You know what? We couldn't put that out. We were just really unhappy with it. So we said, shag it. We're gonna come out to Eternal Flame Falls today. We're gonna attempt number 2, but it's raining. But we're not afraid of the rain, because this is just like what we used to do in Vancouver every single weekend. We're not trying to get fancy. We're just gonna use the camera app. It's 20 to 3 and it's dark. It's a bit
and it doesn't get dark till 4:45. I don't know how this phone is gonna.
This phone might not do what we want it to do.
Perform.
So we went out into the woods
in the rain, in the cold.
And it was so much better. Shooting with the native app just made way more sense.
Look at that there low, first try.
I made a shot list. We're gonna do the voiceover after the fact in the studio to get that nice voice quality because audio is the most important part of making videos. I say this as my mic is taped together with a Band-Aid. Okay, the first one on the list is just kind of like an establishing shot. So we can get a wide shot. Second one will be like a side shot where you're gonna go in the forest and like dolly while I walk, and we're gonna see the trees going in front of us.
All right, I'm gonna go mode lock. You wanna walk? You like that framing there?
Yeah.
You're like a giant gray car.
Yeah. So the next shot, I'm gonna be walking and you're gonna be in the woods. And so we're gonna see like the woods going by. Okay, so we got a couple of shots in the bag. Just working through our shot list. We got the forest shot, we've got the walking shot, the establishing shot. Now we're gonna get a couple of medium shots. We got rain on the lens. Gonna walk up the roots. Kind of a medium shot, yeah?
Let's try it in cinematic mode. I don't know if it's cinematic mode 4K or not.
This is the first time we've tried to shoot like kind of a cinematic video on an iPhone before. You know what the best way to learn is to do. Oh yeah, that's perfect. We're using our 7-shot sequence, but we're also using all the tips that we talked about in our very first gimbal video when we talked about how to shoot real estate with gimbals. The same concepts apply, Steadicam creep, all the gimbal positioning. So if you want to check that one out, link up here. I think we got our unexpected shot. We got some of our close-up detail shots. And because we're using the gimbal, we're able to get kind of like some really cool kind of dolly shots, like longer shots that are super stable. So we're shooting a mix of 60 frames per second on the iPhone. And we're also using cinematic mode. We're gonna kind of mix them in between and see what we like best. But I must say, I'm really happy we decided to reshoot this because this footage looks so much better than what we shot yesterday. We were actually out there with the phone in the cold, and
I didn't bother shutting it down between shots. I just left it on the whole time.
And there was like 1 bar gone off the battery.
Yeah,
You can charge this in less than 2 hours. Speaking of that, they also have this little quick release on here so you can easily and quickly take the plate off. So that's really handy when you're changing batteries on your camera. You can just slide it out, change the battery and put it back in. You don't have to rebalance the gimbal, which is so key. There's also an accessory that can mount on the bottom so that you can mount a mic on here, which is really handy if you're filming somebody else and vlogging. Oh, I think that was worth it.
Oh my God.
From what I've seen on the camera, look. So much better than yesterday.
Okay, lessons learned. Number 1, always test your setup. Don't use a random app that you haven't used in a while.
Yeah.
Number 2, the default phone camera app is pretty good on the iPhone. Number 3, I found myself gravitating towards cinematic mode.
Okay.
More.
Which is 1080, but we're fine with that. We're fine to zoom it up.
And number 4, 3, 5, next number, X, the gimbal is fairly water resistant. Asterisk, I'm sure that Zhiyun will say it's not water resistant. Don't use it in the rain.
Dead cat looks like a dead cat. God, it's so moist. It's like a moist towelette. The gimbal was in the rain. It was soaked. It did amazing. It didn't shut down once.
I was a bit worried.
I was worried too.
Because it's not advertised to be water resistant or waterproof.
Like not recommended.
I'm sure Zhiyun will be like, no, don't talk about it being waterproof. This is not an official feature. But anyway, all I can say is that in our experience, we shot in the rain and it was fine. For anybody who doesn't have the gear that we're fortunate enough to have, you know, can you make something that looks nearly as good? Or almost inseparable if you didn't have like an A/B comparison? I think so.
Yeah. So this is what we came back with the Crane M3, an iPhone 13 Pro, edited in Premiere and color graded. So here's my idea of a perfect day. The day starts out with an expected photography excursion. Nowhere intense, just a chosen location and a camera. There's no timeline, nowhere to be, just the day ahead with a few potential pictures. Now this day has no expectations. There's no planned shots or bangers. It's just about getting out with your camera and pressing the shutter. This day is more about enjoying the process versus processing the photo. It's the act of picking up the camera and emerging from the house and putting your brain to work. And it doesn't matter if it's cold and raining, because at the end of the day, when you're home, warm and pouring up a cup of tea, you're gonna think, damn, that was a good outing.
I was impressed. I thought that it looked like the stuff that you'd seen on channels. Like it was almost there.
There's a few quirks.
There were a few quirks.
Not about the gimbal, about filming with your phone.
But it worked out. But what we did find though is on the fly as we were shooting, I was playing around with the different modes. I was going, oh, we've got 24 frames per second. Oh, let's go up to 60p and we can, you know, do a little overcrank slow motion. And then it was like, oh wait, let's try this new cinematic mode. I thought all in all, the cinematic mode did pretty well. I was impressed.
Where it struggled was in trees.
When you were trying to walk through the leaves, it really got confused with small, tiny, detailed objects. You could really see that the mask just falling apart, and it's like, okay, that's fake. That's fake depth of field.
And then there was one shot where you were following me through the woods, and I was going behind trees, and so every now and then you'd see like a piece of the cinematic mode like be
separate from the tree trunk.
Yes.
When I was just shooting the leaves before I was shooting Becky, if she wasn't in the frame, it would bias to a cooler white balance. And all of a sudden, my life-size gray card would walk into the frame.
It actually was great because when I was doing the primary color correction, I could just eyedropper my coat.
Right.
And it was like a neutral
it's
gray.
Almost like a perfect 18% gray.
That was great. You know, once we went through the normal process that we do of color grading, obviously we weren't shooting log, we were just shooting with the phone stuff. So you take out the log portion of the workflow, but we still went through and did the primary color correction on all the clips to make sure that they were all neutral and matched, change the exposure, drop the highlights, shadows, whatever, add a vignette. And then once all the clips were neutralized and matched, then we put the color grade on top of that. And it looked pretty decent, I think.
If I knew that the exposure is gonna be even for the whole scene, I'd lock it so there's no exposure shifts. And I think doing that actually locked the white balance as well. So low dynamic range with clipped highlights is a telltale sign that you're shooting on like not a nice high-end camera. So I do that when I shoot with GoPros. I'll always exposure bias down, and same with the phone. I don't want to clip the highlights.
Yeah. That being said, with the gimbal, we tried to shoot a bunch of different modes. So we did one where I was in the center and you kind of ran around me. Now that one was a little bit of a challenging shot because we have a phone camera that zoomed in, so you're shooting telephoto with the camera.
Yes.
So already your field of view is very narrow. Now you're running around me and the ground is up and down.
Yeah, so we're actually on a slight slope. So Becky was standing here and I was down here. And of course the gimbal is going to orient itself with respect to the horizon. As I was raising up, my framing was changing, and I was going down, my framing was changing.
Right, so that was a challenging shot. I think that the shot turned out half decent given the scenario in which we were shooting.
But my arm's doing this, you're still gonna be able to see that, especially at when we shot it at the 3x mode with the telephoto lens.
Yeah, because we wanted to get that kind of shot where everything in the background seemed like it was whizzing by.
And that parallax, and that's a very difficult shot to get. But the fact that we were able to achieve what we got on
with a phone and this teeny tiny gimbal.
And a phone, like that to me is mind blowing. The shallow depth of field bit, I think that the cinematic mode could get you like 90% there, but for any really close up, detail oriented things, it's actually better to ditch the cinematic mode and just use the real depth of field of the camera. Use the telephoto camera to give you a longer focal length so that you actually can inherently increase your depth of field naturally.
A combination of smooth camera movements, exposure and white balance lock, and then just using dynamic shooting like we talked about in the 7-shot sequence video, you're gonna get a decent looking video. I think we need to see if we can balance the A7S around this.
Yes.
Okay.
If you can figure it out without the instructions, then it's like a well-designed product. A7S, it says it right there. All right. This one. Fire her up.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah?
It actually works.
We're gonna go through the studio. It's gonna be a very big adventure.
It's gonna be a studio obstacle course?
It's gonna be an obstacle course. Come on this wacky adventure with me.
Not looking at the screen. I'm just trying not to trip over all the boxes and wires here.
Welcome to our studio. It is a mess.
A wider lens.
Damn, that looks good. Looks like a gimbal, dude.
It works. I'm impressed. Color me impressed. It's hard to balance though, just because the camera's so big with respect to the gimbal. Yeah, this would
doable.
Work. This is doable. Yeah.
I think in a perfect case scenario, you'd have like a smaller like APS-C camera on it, so like the ZVE10 or the 6400 or the 6600. I can totally see myself using the 6400 on this with like the 24mm prime lens, and I think that would look really good.
Yeah, because you can't like do a flashlight mode, like if you try to bring it down, it hits right here, the viewfinder. Otherwise, if you use it in the standard mode.
For a $400 gimbal, that's pretty impressive.
I was a little bit skeptical, and I was honestly wondering initially, I was like, do we have a role for this? We already have gimbals. They all work great.
Yeah.
Is this something that is going to work for us? And I'm actually pleasantly surprised. Yes, I think it will. I think for people who aren't us, who might be looking at this for either their phone or a smaller rig, is not only affordable, because it's at a very attractive price point. It fills a void where people who are using smaller cameras are going to need to be more cognizant about how stable their footage is just because the cameras are so light. So this does a great job of that.
I'm really impressed with the build quality of this and how it feels in the hand and the size. I think that you could make really good videos with a budget camera and this gimbal using filmmaking techniques.
It really lowers the barrier of entry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is very easy to stick in your camera bag. Kind of a criteria for us.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And it looks like a candy cane too, so Merry Christmas.
No, no, no. It looks like a stormtrooper. Star Wars is a Christmas movie, right? I hope you guys found this video helpful and hopefully it gave you a couple of ideas and tips on how you can kind of implement these filmmaking storytelling techniques with just using your phone. And huge thanks to Zhiyun for sponsoring today's video and sending us the Crane M3 to test out and give us a little bit of a challenge, trying something a little bit new.
That's fun.
It was fun. I had a really good time. Right.
All right,
cool.
we'll see you next one.
See ya. See ya.
See ya, what am I being?
Wow.
Oh, look at that one.
Look at the water.
Wow, look at that one.
Wow.
Wow, look at that one.
Wow.
Wow, you can bring it down.
Wow.
Is that your montage music?
Yeah. Went to this new location.
Anyway.
I think you're mixing it up with Always I Want to Be With You.
That's all a fantastic track.
We're back from our adventure, wearing the same clothes. Did we shoot this all in one day? Yes. Did we pretend we didn't? Yes. With the power of video.
Power video.
I need Tums. I can't believe you made fun of my drawings.
I didn't make fun of them. I celebrated them.
So hungry, I can't wait to eat my sandwich.
You have a sandwich made upstairs?
I got a smoked turkey sandwich left over from yesterday, and so do you.
So do I, yeah.
And chips.